Thank you, choir. That was awesome. Just want to encourage you to open your Bibles to the passage at hand this morning. We get an opportunity to think about this extraordinary series of events that takes place in the life of our Lord, and is reread and reread again, especially during this season, and has an opportunity to take light in our lives as well. Please consider this thought, and just a couple of blanks for you to fill in if you want to look at your outline. If the ascent of the mountain is essential, the descent from the mountain is imperative. So if it is essential that we go up the mountain of God to meet with God there, then it is imperative that we come down with whatever it is that we got up there and begin to live it in the world of the valley, or to share it with others who weren't able to be on the mountain with us. The summit, the point of the summit is to be with God. The point of the valley is to be with others. And that these two things work together brings some extraordinarily life-giving insights. You see, the summits and the valleys in the gospel are fascinating, and they just read right to us as we look at them. So just a couple of other just pre-thoughts. I just want to seed the clouds this morning before we start. We grow spiritually much more by doing it wrong than by doing it right. Now, I have to say that for you because we kind of want to deny that. But the truth is that somehow getting it wrong produces the environment for us to get it right. And so that's the first thing. However, few of us desire the downward path to growth. So we neither seek it, and at times we don't suspect it, do we? We don't think that the downward path is leading us up. And so we don't want to go there. I mean, like in our brains, like if we're thinking about it, yeah, that's right. But then the downward path knocks on your door one day, or on your commute, or at the office, or in that dreadful phone call. What a clever place for God to put holiness. So that only the humble and the earnest will find it. It's like God has taken this very powerful means of our transformation and has hidden it in plain sight. And we walk past it every day until all of a sudden we get it and our circumstances wake us up. And we see the light, we behold the glory. And then we descend to the valley with the light, with the warmth, with the heat. You see, the summits and the valley of our life are working together. Not just the summits are working for you. The summits and the valleys are working together. We can't have one without the other. When you get to the top of Mount Everest, I'm told, it stops. There's no ascending ladder. There's no other place to go. In fact, the high altitude climbers that I had an opportunity to read and talk to tell me that the summit is nothing at Everest. It's whether you get down with your life. It's whether you get back down to base camp that is still within the death zone at 18,000 feet. It will be days until you get someplace where you can breathe like a normal person. Now that's the summit and the valley. And this is what is happening. I just encourage us to turn our hearts towards God's Word this morning as we look at this fascinating couplet of stories. Lord Jesus, open our eyes again. I thank you that we sang that song, Open the Eyes of Our Hearts, that we might see what you have for us in these powerful stories, that we might open our lives to all that you have for us here. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord. Amen. Amen. So the Mount of Transfiguration invites us to glory. Okay? It invites us to this. No one has seen Jesus like this yet. This is glorious. And I would just tune you up to this by suggesting that there is good reason to believe that the Mount of Transfiguration, this story, happens at night. Okay? Because that's when, again and again, we're told that Jesus goes to pray. He goes up to the mountain at night to pray again and again. And we know that the disciples sleep at night. And they're sleeping on the mountain. And we know that the second part of this story, the couplet, says, the next day. So they must have been in the intervening night. Okay? And what splendor now. Now read the story. What splendor and glory if all this is happening at night. On the mountain. There's fire on the mountain as the Lord is transfigured. So this is an invitation to Jesus and to us, to disciples everywhere, to the glory of God. The doxa, the glory, the Shekinah, the power of God. Jesus' glory is revealed through, verse 29, through prayer. He went to the mountain to pray, and it says, as he was praying. Check this out. As he was praying, his face changed, and his clothes became bright as a flash of lightning. I'll never forget the time I was... halfway through college or whatever, and I was at this missions boot camp in Florida. And I'd never been, back that far east before, and we were having a thunderstorm that turned to lightning. And there was a flash of lightning over our heads that we were in this jungle place. And it just went for a moment. The lights in the whole universe were just on. I could see shadows of trees and things. I mean, this boy from California was going, oh my God. The glory at night. His face is changed to brightness. 2 men, Moses and Elijah. Wow, what an amazing. We've got it. We've got it back there. Moses and Elijah. Moses, they probably knew him because his big full beard and all of that, and hair, and Elijah was bald-headed, full beard. And here they are, standing with him. And it says, they appeared in glorious splendor, talking to Jesus, speaking about his departure and the fulfillment in Jerusalem. They're talking about the life, death, and resurrection of the Christ. And all this is happening. Well, the second part of this invitation to glory is the disciples realize his glory while awake, verse 32, and while listening. Peter and his companions were very sleepy, but when they became fully awake, they saw the glory and the 2 men standing with him. And then this is, I always, when you come to church, always wake up in enough time. Have a good cup of coffee, a shower, slap your face. You don't want to show up here at church kind of groggy, because you'll say really stupid things. We say dumb things when we're not quite awake, and Peter is just all over himself. In fact, this is wonderful. He says, "Wow, look at this. We ought to be doing something like we ought to get this in a bottle or get this on tape. Who's got their smartphone? They should be doing this. Let's keep this going. Let's build a place for Jesus and Moses and Elijah." In fact, if you go to this spot where it is said that this is recalled, that's exactly what they've done after all these years. They've built a place for all three of them, and you go there and you worship, and it's all very lovely. But it's not what Jesus had in mind. And he says what's really great about this is that it says he did not know what he was saying. How many times have you gotten yourself into something and you perceive partway through the sentence that you've already said the wrong thing? And now you're thinking, am I going to go on with this, or am I going to go over here with this? And I don't have much time because they're looking at me and their eyes are burning into my forehead, and I got to come up with something. And wow, life is miserable right now. Talking out of his head, let's do something. What's this all about? And then a cloud envelops them. And out of the cloud, second time this happened at the baptism, a voice came from the cloud saying, "This is my son whom I have chosen. Listen to him." I can't say this for the rest of you, but sometimes you're on page with me. The most difficult time to pray, the most difficult time to listen to God is when things are going fairly well. When things are just kind of, I don't need to listen to God. All is well and life as it should be, and this is great. And maybe even 10 minutes before that, when life was all crummy and I was really praying, God, help me, And then I felt better, and I didn't know what that was all about. And I walked on. The Mount of Transfiguration provides a glory that is unspeakable and can even tempt us to think that maybe all is well and successful, and maybe all that was a bad dream and it's going to be okay from here on out until the next thing happens. There's always the next day, or the plot thickens. The Valley of the Demons invites us to desperation. Each of us need a strong, bold cup of desperation to sip out of from time to time. And this is one of the best. It says, the next day when they came down from the mountain, a large crowd met him. A man in the crowd called out, "Teacher, I beg you to look at my son, for he is my only child. A spirit seizes him, and he suddenly screams. It throws him into convulsions. He foams at the mouth. It scarcely ever leaves him and is destroying him. I begged your disciples to drive him out, but they couldn't do it." "O unbelieving and perverse generation," Jesus replies, "how long shall I stay with you and put up with you? Bring your son here." Wow. Do you feel the desperation of that situation? Can you sense that? Verse 37, you've got a crowd gathering. Anytime, that the crowd is gathering and there's this convulsive kind of desperate, rowdy kind of thing, that's the first sign that, a large crowd is gathering. This man, wow, that this could be. And then verse 38, we have a father and his only son. The father his desperation is that my son has been all tied up in this demonic activity, and it's nothing that we ever wanted for ourselves, and he's my only son. And the son wants freedom from this as well. Now, if you look at Mark 9:14, don't go there yet, but let me just read it for you, and then we can come back to it. We get another wrinkle in this same picture. Mark also tells us when they came to the other disciples, they saw the large crowd around them and the teachers of the law arguing with them. So now you've got the crowds You've got the father and son for whom the crowds are wondering what's going on. You have the teachers of the law arguing their point. So on top of all this, you've got this great religious debate going on. Those things never go well. They generally, develop more heat than light to the situation. And these are people that have a passion for ideas, but they could care less about people. They're just trying to get their point across. Then in verse 40, you have the disciples that are quite frankly frustrated and embarrassed at their powerlessness. They have done great things for God before, but they just seem to be at their wits' end. They're desperate. And even the Lord Jesus himself is desperate that everyone involved in this motley crew would find faith, something that is eluding everyone just now. There's always people that want to poke holes in things, and they love verses like this because this seems so out of the character of Jesus if that's how you read it. But you see, the harsh tone of Jesus is not talking about his impatience with people. It's talking about the priority of faith. How long is this going to take to get someone to join into this thing? Because this is really important. These people don't know. These people that want to argue theology don't know. This father and son don't know that it's not even about the demon possession. And the disciples they're so concentrated on the problem that they don't know. And the crowd just doesn't know. Haven't figured it out. That this is about an adventure in faith. There's good news about prolonged and deep desperation. It moves the heart. As we heard on one of the Peace University videos a couple of weeks ago, most of us get sick and tired of being sick and tired. And so the prolonged and deep state of our desperation forces us to say, when am I going to do the next thing? However, there are some hard nuts to crack. There are many of us that play even at the edge of our own desperation as to whether we're really going to get some business done. I return to a book that I've read often, and just this paragraph speaks so much to me. It says, life is difficult. Life is a series of problems. Do we want to moan about them or solve them? Do we want to teach our children to be problem solvers? Most do not fully see the truth that life is difficult. Instead, they moan more or less incessantly, noisily, or subtly about the enormity of their problems, their burdens, their difficulties, as if life is generally easy. As if it should be easy. They voice their belief noisily and subtly that their difficulties represent a unique kind of affliction that should not be, and that has somehow been especially visited upon them and their families and their friends and their tribe. You see, even in the midst of our desperation, we somehow wiggle off the hook of faith by preferring to complain and moan and create drama and the attention that brings to us, rather than getting down to the real solutions of life. We complain incessantly about professionals that should do it always right for us. And everyone in the world's wrong. The sad thing is that we are raising a generation of complainers and whiners that are victims versus healthy, whole problem solvers in the name of Jesus. Jesus is solving a bigger problem than the disciples' frustration and the demon-possessed son and the teachers of the law and the crowd could have ever envisioned. He's offering life in the midst of a difficult world. We must ask ourselves today whether we are growing up to be problem solvers or problem staters. And I'm going to just talk about that a little more in a minute. But by way of application and what we are to do, just check out the last two verses of our story. Even while the boy was coming, the demon threw him to the ground in convulsions, but Jesus rebuked the evil spirit, healed the boy, gave him back to his father, and they were all amazed at the greatness of God. So what Jesus does and what we are able to do but are likely not to do is instructive here. You see, Jesus rebukes evil. He goes to the source with his resource, God. He doesn't have to make a big show of this. He just has to remind everybody, himself included, that evil has no power over him as long as he doesn't empower it. But we, on the other hand, tend to rehearse all of our evils. All day long, everyone we go to, we make sure they know our evils and how terrible our day has been. See that? See how that just empowers? Greater is he who is in us than he who is in the world. And folks, we're just going to have to believe that in the demon-possessed valley. And if we don't, we will not rebuke the evil in our life. We'll keep rehearsing it. We'll keep a scorecard on everyone and everything that's not doing it right according to us. I love in verse 42, Jesus restores. He gives the Father and His Son back to each other. Jesus is the restorer of relationships. We tend to ruin relationships and just go on to a new relationship. This is the statistics from right in the middle of the heartland of Christianity. We tend to ruin our relationships and just move on to the next church or the next marriage or the next friendship or the next writer or whatever it is. Instead of sitting tight and working it out, Jesus is about the restoration of the demon-possessed valley. And it's going to be ugly. There's going to be a lot of convulsing. And Jesus says, hang on. And then I love the very end of this. Jesus reflects glory. Notice how at the end of all of this, as well as the end of the Transfiguration, the greatness is reflected. All are amazed at the greatness of God. Jesus doesn't, well, excuse me, I'm God's son. Does that count? The greatness of God. Notice how Jesus reflects glory, and we tend to retain it. We want to absorb the glory for ourselves. It doesn't matter how much light God shines on us. We just suck it in to the darkness of our need for attention. Our need to be somehow seen and validated. We crave attention. Even if it's all about our bad news. Our poor, sad lives. Someone once said that if it wasn't for bad luck, I wouldn't have any luck at all. We're kind of like that with attention. Jesus wants us to be people who let the light shine in the darkness. It's critical. And in the next couple of weeks, we celebrate a worship service here that your friends and family and your neighbors are more likely to come to than any other service we have. Are you inviting? Are you touching lives? Will they be coming along? Jesus wants us to come to church like a huddle and get filled with the glory of God and go out and reflect it. Not to ourselves, but to a world that really needs to see it. You are the light of the world, Jesus says, with no qualifications or conditions. You are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden, neither do people light a lamp and put a bowl over it. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before men and women, that they may see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven. Not see your good deeds and give you an attaboy.